I am no longer confident with Stanley Wabali in goal, which is sad to say because that's his entire. I've never thought of Stanley Wabali as as the best goalkeeper in the world, or as an elite distributor, or as an elite showstopper. The thing is that he inspires confidence way more than our previous goalkeepers because he's at the very least decent at all categories required for a goalkeeper. All glory to the higher power for waking us up with breath in our lungs. My name is Tunde Young. I'm about to make your Monday a lot easier by bringing you episode 4 of the T&T Talk Sports show, where we'll be breaking down all of the biggest sporting gist of the weekend and even the week that just passed and giving you my unique takes on it. So if you care about me or care about my unique takes, you've come to the absolute right place. A lot happened over the weekend. A lot happened over the weekend. Even though it's international break, it was a very, very busy weekend for sports. So maybe not football so much. But over the weekend, we saw a glimpse of Football Manager 26. They skipped 25. I don't know, because of some issues. But the jump in quality from what we were used to on Football Manager 24 to what is now available on Football Manager 26 it was so big that it got the internet talking. Football Manager 26 basically looks like FIFA at this point. And if if your system not strong, no full body, just remove your mind from it. But it also sent me down a train of thought of how committed am I to Football Manager? I don't think I've played Football Manager in at least 3 years now. And there was a time where it was an active obsession. But that's the thing. The problem with Football Manager is you can't passively play it. You can't just like casually, oh, I'm just going to play Football Manager while I work or do some. Like you have to be fully committed to really enjoy the experience. And I just have things going on in my life, bro. I just have things going on in my life that I can't no longer commit the level of intensity I once could, level of focus I could once give to a video game, right? So now you play games like FC 25, blah blah blah. Trash game, but it doesn't require as much attention. You can just put down your work, go a few 2 hours. I can't do few 2 hours on FM. I need to lock in. I need to plan for the entire season. I can spend just that 2 hours scouting players in Brazil. So that's how much of an FM freak I used to be, but not anymore. I don't know if that's positive or negative, but thank you. I would like to hear your thoughts on Football Manager. How, as a football fan, as a sports fan generally, how has it impacted your knowledge of the game? I know a lot of these positions that we quote in football now, a lot of these registers, trequartista, and so on and so forth. The alternate names for footballing positions ultimately were derived from Football Manager. And so if you see any football manager, any football Twitter tactical, they most likely are Football Manager nerds because those tactical approaches were owned on Football Manager. So that's enough about FM26. I think I'm going to get the game. I'm going to get the game as soon as I can get it, but I don't know if I'm going to be actively playing it. But I just want to get it first of all to see if my laptop can do the things it's supposed to do. Secondly, it seems like it's going to be a fun experience. So that's enough of my ramblings on FM26. A lot happened over the weekend, like I mentioned earlier, and this on Sunday night, I think the biggest thing that happened was Carlos Alcaraz winning the US Open, beating Jannik Sinner in the US Open final. It was it was too easy. I was trying to put it in a way that would not sound disrespectful to Sinner, but it was not as competitive as I came in expecting it to be. I fully, based on what we've seen from the SINCARAZ finals, this is the sixth final that these two titans are taking on each other for. We've seen them, play each other from 2024 in the China Open final, where Alcaraz was the winner, to the Italian Open final in 2025 earlier this year, where Alcaraz was the winner, to the French Open final on clay, where Alcaraz was the winner, and then there was a brief interlude where Sinner won Wimbledon recently. Then the Cincinnati Open final, Alcaraz was the winner because of retirement, and then now in the US Open, 6-2, 3-6, 6-1, 6-4, it ended in favor of Carlos Alcaraz. So congratulations to the 22-year-old. World at his feet, looking like he's going to retire among one of the greats, which is incredible to say for a player who is essentially still a rookie at 22 years old. So congratulations to Carlos Alcaraz. And but is there a deeper conversation to be had about the SINCARAZ finals? If you are a tennis fan or just a sports fan in general, does it do the sport more good or more harm for two players to consistently meet each other in finals like this? And not just even in finals. The final run is 6 in a row. But before the final run, they also had a semi-final run that was 5 straight semi-finals in a row from 2023 to 2024 across multiple tournaments. So, like, these two players seem to always find each other at the most crucial parts of any tennis tournament. And at this point, there's a part of me that says that at some point it might start to lose its thrill, especially when it's so one-sided. Of the last 6 finals that I just ran down, Alcaraz, legitimately won 4. Sinner retired from 1, and Alcaraz and Sinner won in Wimbledon. So does it take away the predictability? Does it take away the unpredictable nature of sports to continually have two guys go head to head in the final? At the start of that, so there were several jokes about it in this US Open that this entire tournament could have been an email, because at the end of the day, it's these two guys that are going to make it to the final. So maybe why so why not just let them play the final and let everybody save everybody else the hassle of starting from the preliminary rounds and making it all the way to the final, where it's just going to come down to these two guys at the end of the day. So that's where we are on SINCARAZ. That's the criticism of these two continually meeting each other in the final. But again, it also shows the amount of separation between them and the rest of the field. It's clear, in my opinion, that Alcaraz is better than Sinner at the moment. Even though when Sinner is not playing Alcaraz, it genuinely looks better than when Alcaraz is not playing Sinner. I don't know how to explain it. Alcaraz looks more vulnerable against other players than he does against Sinner, which is crazy to say, because he somehow always manages to make Jannik Sinner look very, very human, which is not easy to do, because he's a robot-esque, a robotic machine of a man. So congratulations to those two guys. Continue to dominate the world of tennis. Novak Djokovic, I think it's time. I think it's time, bro. These two guys are not. They don't respect their elders. So I think it's time. Just let them be. You've had your own go. Let them be, and let them enjoy themselves. It's clear that Djokovic is not on this level of intensity, and I don't want to say ability, because it sounds like blasphemy. It really does. So yeah, what else happened over the weekend? The most important thing that happened over the weekend. I'm getting to it. I know you want to hear the Super Eagles, but no, that's not where I'm going to first. If you can see the jersey I'm wearing, it's for my favorite club, Atlantic Business Football Club, and we started. That's a full disclosure. I work for the club as the communications director. So thank you very much. I clap for myself and I receive my imaginary applause to myself. But yeah, ABFC, we started our season. We're playing the TCC. If you don't know what the TCC is, that's the Creative Championship League. It's the premier youth league in the country. So the best youth teams in the country, beyond limits, who are famed, for being the feeders team of Remo Stars, are really Sapphire, the defending champions. Lots of top teams, and it's proven to be a consistent channel for players to, for European scouts and whatnot, or Scandinavian leagues, whatever it's Finland, Norway, Denmark. A lot of these players play at this level, and that's where they're spotted, and then they move to Europe, and that bets what you go on to see. likes of Ebenezer Akot, who made the Super Eagles debut recently at the Chan 2025 tournament, played in the TCC, and he still plays in the TCC with Beyond Limit. So, to establish that, we kicked off our TCC campaign with a 4-0 thrashing, 4-0 of Danas FC at the Ijebu-Ode, in Dipodino Stadium in Ijebu-Ode. So I had a great time watching that game live in person on Sunday afternoon, 2 p.m. kickoff, and so made my way from Lagos to Ijebu-Ode and back same day, just to enjoy some great football. And the boys did not disappoint. So go to the ABFC page and check out all the content about that game that I've created so far. Now, let me go to what we are here to do. I hope my editor will put that sound. It's time for what we have come here to do.
Let's start what we have come into the room to do.
The Super Eagles of Nigeria. The Super Eagles of Nigeria found new ways to disappoint Nigerians on Saturday. So technically, it's over the weekend. It fell on a Saturday. 1-0 win against Rwanda, but it did not feel like a win. It did not feel like a positive result whatsoever. I don't know if people came into that game expecting Super Eagles to mop the floor with Rwanda. I don't know if somebody was out there that thought it was going to be a 4-5-6 kind of victory. Far from it. In fact, when was the last time we saw Super Eagles do anything above 2 goals? 3 goals is a luxury for the Super Eagles nowadays. But this performance was so bad. The goal that eventually won us all 3 points, Toluwa Arukodare. Congratulations to him, his second Super Eagles goal, and probably the most important one so far. Super sub. This is not about Toluwa Arukodare at all. He's done his job. Even though the goal was scrappy as hell, he did what he was supposed to do. We don't care. 3 points reads. The question is, or one of the questions, because there are so many questions. There are so many questions. One of the questions is, should you be ashamed if, as the Super Eagles of Nigeria, 3-time African champions, multiple-time World Cup participants, I think about 6 or 7 times now, are in a World Cup qualifier at home to Rwanda, and we won by a lone scrappy goal? Only our second win out of 7 games in this qualifying campaign. Our first win in front of our home fans. Everything is a disappointing read and does not inspire confidence going into the crucial game against South Africa, which we will get to. But let's talk about this Rwanda game. And let's talk about Eric Shell, who made several big calls, that's to be said. I'll give him that. Even though I wholeheartedly disagree with his adamance to play this 4-4-2 diamond formation that we clearly don't have the players for. This is a very top-heavy Super Eagles side. Our best players are the attackers, not the midfielders. So if you insist on shoehorning them into a diamond formation in the center of midfield, you are really depriving the team of what could be some free-flowing attacking football. But I will give him credit for the fact that it does seem to have balls to make bigger calls than Nigerian managers have seen in recent times. Case in point, dropping William Trustekong for Benjamin Frederick, a 21-year-old defender, Brentford defender on loan in Belgium at the moment, started in a back 4 along with Olaino, Calvin Bassey, and Bruno Yemachi. But where we now have a problem is the midfield, like I said earlier. There's a midfield 4. Wilfred Ndidi at the base of the midfield. Everything is making sense so far. Alex Iwobi on the left side of the midfield. Okay, Iwobi does drift wide a lot, so I get it. Ademola Lookman at the sharp edge of the diamond, at the tip of the diamond as the number 10. Not the greatest placement or the best use of Lookman, but yeah, it's not. Let's see. It's an experiment. Frank the Tank Onyeka as the right-sided central midfielder is where I draw the line. Frank Onyeka is good for one thing and one thing only. Arcing, defensive play, winning the ball back. Not even winning the ball back and recycling possession. Recycling possession is not his concern. Winning the ball back by hook or by crook, mostly by crook. That is what Frank Onyeka does. And Eric Shell looked at that man. Bless his heart. This is not a shade on Frank Onyeka at all. Eric Shell looked at him, looked at his skill set and said, it is you that I want to be solely responsible for Nigeria's offense on the right side of the pitch. It was an asinine decision. It was a terrible decision. But again, to Shell's credit, he realized it immediately and atoned for it. Took out Frank Onyeka at that time, replaced him with Tolu Arokodare, and the rest, as they say, is history, which is what led to the lone scrappy goal that I mentioned earlier. So this setup, we've seen him try it in all 4 of his Super Eagles games so far. We've seen him try it with the Chan Eagles, all 3 of the Chan Eagles games. It's clearly not working. Although I will say that as a manager with strong convictions and that has achieved a reasonable amount of success with this shape, I understand his loyalty to it. I understand. From his perspective, it might be feeling like, let's just stick with it a little bit more. At some point, they will get used to it, which is true. If you do something long enough, at some point, it will start to work. But the thing is that that's what separates best managers from the bad ones, is that how quickly can you get your system to work within the framework of what this team is trying to achieve. Because we are going to run out of games pretty soon in this World Cup qualifier. We are going to run out of games pretty soon. There are 3 games left. One of them is an all-important game against South Africa that I don't think we can afford experiments in. So what this Rwanda game proved is simple. 4-4-2 works for the Super Eagles of Nigeria, just not in a diamond. 4-4-2 works. When Cyril Dessers replaced Victor Osimhen after his unfortunate injury in the first half, Antolo Arokodare replaced Frank Onyeka. And then we went to a flat 4-4-2 with 2 strikers as God intended. Took Moses Simon away from his supporting striker role where he was being misused and pushed him on the left where he could torment his fullback. Moved Ademola Lookman to the right, even though that wasn't as effective, but still, it was still a positive, a positive trending move. We could see what the changes were. Crosses were coming in. The attack was we were countering with better ease. Alex Iwobi, along with Wilfred Ndidi in midfield, made more sense than Frank Onyeka along with Wilfred Ndidi. So I hope that Eric Shell has learned a lasting lesson from this entire fiasco, from the Rwanda game. That I saw has to have some positive effects. The game itself was not positive. The result was barely positive. It was, but it was barely positive. Nobody feels good about that result, even though on paper it's all 3 points. The aftermath, though, has to absolutely be positive. We have to watch the South Africa game and say, yes, Rwanda was a good test. Rwanda was a good test game for us to figure out what works against South Africa, our most important game, away out South Africa. And as I talk about that game now, I'm having palpitations because Victor Osimhen, like I mentioned earlier, was injured against Rwanda. And it's now been confirmed that he will not play against South Africa on Tuesday. Where do we go from here? Omo Nigeria, Ewo. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. But I also know that this team is blessed with an abundance of offensive talent, an abundance of center forward talent that it is ridiculous. The amount of players that are not even making a squad. Terry Murphy will start for Ghana. Taiwo Awoniyi would be given a knighthood. What else am I missing? The guy that just went to Gift Urban. Giftaban will play for most African countries. Giftaban will play for most African countries. Paul Onuachu will play for most African countries as a starter. Paul Onuachu will play for most African countries as a starter. These are players that are not even getting a look in. Suarez has only even... The game against Rwanda was Suarez's first competitive game for Nigeria. Every other game is played before were friendly games. So, like, there is clearly a lot of talent. But there is also the undisputed fact that Osimhen is at least a full level ahead of every other striker in his team. Which is not disservice to the striker, it's just that Osimhen is that good. So quality like that will absolutely be missed. But if we can edge that bet with the right setup, which is where Richel has fallen short so far, has to be said. If you go flat 4-4-2 with two flying wingers, I nominate Moses Simon and Samuel Chukwueze. Samuel Chukwueze, for all the criticism he gets, one thing you can't say about him is that he doesn't advance the ball. He advances the ball, he is a threat. However, his decision in the final third or his execution of said idea, of said threatening idea, might be called into question. In fact, it's quite often, more often than not, called into question. That can be argued. But the intent is always there. I would rather have him there than Lookman or than Onyeka. Speaking of Lookman, clearly rusty. Hasn't played football all summer. He was in a standoff with Atalanta and was on strike, so did not play. The game against Rwanda was his first game since the end of last season. So it was not ideal. You could see it in how he was moving as well. I don't know if Lookman should play against South Africa, or at least from the start. And if he does, he has to play as one of two strikers, not as a winger. Not as a winger. Lookman's best abilities, is as crazy as it sounds to say, are off the ball. He has incredible movement. He has a knack for where to be. He has a knack for playing off of a striker. So if you play Lookman and Tolu Arokodare up front as the two strikers, then flank them with Moses Simon and Samuel Chukwueze. Then at the base of that, it's Wilfred Ndidi and Alex Iwobi. I'm okay with whatever the result is. At that point, you've played our best hand. Because the South Africa game is a must-win. From Hugo Bruce's perspective, from South Africa's perspective, from the perspective of the Bafana, they have 16 points from 7 games. A draw in this game against Nigeria essentially eliminates Nigeria and also solidifies them as group winners. And by group winners, of course, qualifying for the FIFA World Cup in 2026. Not mathematically, because mathematically a lot can still happen, but commonsensically, with 2 games to go, if you come out of 2 games to go and you're still 6 points ahead of Nigeria, which they are, that's assuming we draw, then you've won. There's nothing to be worried about anymore. Which is why, from the Super Eagles' perspective, it's also a must win. You have to cut that advantage down to 3 points, and then hope that CAS, FIFA, one of the abbreviations, somebody comes to your aid and docks them 3 more points to make sure you are level going into the final 2 games of the campaign. And I think South Africa still have to play against Benin, so there's a chance they might still drop points, while the Super Eagles have to then win their final. So there's a clear pathway to how this could work out in the favor of the Super Eagles. I don't want to be overly excited. I don't want to jinx it, but another storyline from the Rwanda game, and I touched on this in my post-game reaction on my social media pages at Tunde_Young on Instagram, at Real Tunde Young on Twitter, or X at Tunde_Young97 on TikTok. Shameless plug on my own platform. I do not think. Let me not say I do not think. I know for a fact. I am no longer confident with Stanley Nwabali in goal. which is sad to say because that's his entire. I've never thought of Stanley Wabali as as the best goalkeeper in the world, or as an elite distributor, or as an elite showstopper. The thing is that he inspires confidence way more than our previous goalkeepers because he's at the very least decent at all categories required for a goalkeeper. He's a decent shotstopper, he's a decent distributor, and he's a scary looking guy from a striker's perspective. He has a presence that just fills up the post, and with the comparisons to Enyama and all that, he's not even close to being as talented as Vincent Enyama. So let us just clear that up. But yes, I'm listing the reasons why I was initially confident. It was a breath of fresh air, very much in contrast to the fragile frame of Francis Uzor. Even though Uzor is taller, Uzor doesn't look that assured. He doesn't look scary. He's just a tall guy in goal. And clearly the talent level is also not great. But right now, from what we saw against Rwanda, I don't know if I want Stanley Wabali to continue being the undisputed number one. I was never for him to be the undisputed number one anyway. I'd always thought that at the very least, he and Maduka Okoye are on the same level and they should just, rotate or adjust it out. But I understand the need for stability. I understand the need to have a specific number one. And Wabali had this chance and grabbed it at the AFCON. And since then, he's been the number one. You can't argue against that. Until it gives a reason for you to. And I think the Rwanda game should be enough reason to at least think about it. I'm not saying immediately remove him from the team or ostracize him or give him the Uzor treatment. No, I'm not saying any of that. And in fact, I would even urge the general public to be a bit tempered in their reactions because the man has been going through a lot. He has suffered a lot of loss in his personal life very recently. So that's bound to affect any human being in any walk of life, in any profession. So I'm not placing an insensitive burden on him. I'm not doing that. So I'm not saying drop him. What I am saying is we have to start looking at other options, or at least actively start giving him the impression that the number one position is not locked down. For this South Africa game, I understand Adebayo Adele is not where he needs to be to start our most important game of the World Cup qualifying series. I don't think so. And neither is Amas Obasogie. And even if Ebenezer Harcourt had been called up to the final squad, because he made the preliminary squad, but even if he had been called up to the final squad, I doubt I want to see a 15-year-old in goal for our most important World Cup qualifying game. I don't want to see that, no matter how talented he is. But after this round of qualifiers, there is another international break in October. If Maduka Okoye's ban is over by then, I want Maduka Okoye back in the squad. If not, I want Ebenezer Harcourt in the squad. If not, I want Adebayo Adele to get a chance. Bring back Daniel Ekpe. I'm joking. Don't do that. But you get the point. Give Stanley Wabali some credible competition. Call up Arthur Okonkwo if you have to. Arthur Okonkwo, the Wrexham goalkeeper. In my opinion, he switched nationality to Nigeria recently. So, in my opinion, I think this might be the perfect candidate. Call up Ovie Ejeri if you have to. Another former Arsenal academy goalkeeper. There are options. Not options to displace Nwabali, but options to let Nwabali know that there are options. Because right now, his antics, we cannot wait until his antics inevitably cost the team. What he was doing against Rwanda was annoying. It was even costing the team in terms of not starting counter attacks when he should, arguing with Rwandan players unnecessarily, kicking the ball at the feet of the players on purpose, committing fouls that could easily have been red cards if VR was present in African football. So it's irritating to watch. It's irritating to watch. Again, like I said earlier, I'm giving the man grace. I'm giving him benefit of the doubt. that this is just a byproduct of what he's been through of late, and which is understandable. But in the meantime, the work cannot suffer. If he needs time to recuperate and gather himself, fine. But end of this South Africa game, though, I mean, he's the only goalkeeper in the squad that has experience of South African football. Plays in South Africa with Chippa United, so it would be insane to drop the PSL goalkeeper ahead of the game against an heavily PSL based team. So that would be crazy. So Stanley Wabali, you've earned your spot against South Africa. Please do better. Do better than you did against Rwanda. The Rwanda performance was nothing to write home about, in my opinion. Had no redeemable qualities. Let us do better against South Africa. I want to see AFCON Nwabali against South Africa. And even with that, we might still not win. That's the crazy part. Because best case scenario, from Nwabali's perspective, you do very well, you make great saves with 0-0 if the attackers don't score. And 0-0 plays way more into South Africa's hands than it does into Nigeria's hands. So that would be a disaster result, actually. So the Super Eagles of Nigeria absolutely need to win in South Africa. Will we? I don't know. Do I hope that we do? Absolutely. Absolutely hoping that we do secure all 3 points against South Africa to be able to advance to the next round of qualifying games with fresh and renewed hope. No pun intended. I'm not a supporter of anybody that makes use of that slogan. I'm just, as saying as a Nigerian. But I would like to hear your thoughts on how we can make the Super Eagles great again. Because what I'm seeing is not what I want to see from my national team. The Super Eagles are uninspiring. The football is drab. Everything looks like it's an accident. There's nothing that looks like it's put together on purpose. Even the goal we scored looked like an accident. And then you watch other teams in this group C, and then you see what they are playing. See what South Africa did to Lesotho in that away game, even though they played it on their home turf, which it was still kind of crazy. Look at the way Rwanda played us over 2 legs. Rwanda legitimately could have won this second leg in Rio. Look at the way Zimbabwe played us. Zimbabwe are one of the worst teams in this group. Look at the way they played against us. Drawing both games against Zimbabwe home and away. 1-1, 1-1. Other teams are catching up with not even a fraction of the talent that we have. That should scare you. As a Nigerian, that should scare you. Because you are looking at teams like Zimbabwe, teams like Rwanda, teams like Benin Republic, who literally do not have 10% of our talent. Hell, they don't even, some of these teams don't even, Lesotho don't have 1% of our talent. And we drew at home to Lesotho, which is also partly how we found ourselves in this mess. So it's an unfortunate situation. I don't know what to say, but I do hope that the Super Eagles can figure it out. That's my hope for the Super Eagles, that we can figure something out. We cannot continue to just rugged it like this. Let's even say we'll qualify for the World Cup. What are we going to do there? Is it this kind of football? Is this kind of football we are going to play? Maybe we'll rally together, with tournament energy the same way we did at the AFCON, and then that will pull a wool over people's eyes, because that's exactly what the AFCON did. Pre-AFCON, we were horrible. At the AFCON, great. And everybody forgot. Everybody that was Pesero out before a ball was kicked at the AFCON, all of a sudden we're like, you can't fire him now, blah, 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 blah. And then he showed why you should have let him go in the first place. So that's my summation in Super Eagles. Wish everybody best of luck against South Africa on Tuesday. Let's go to European football. And on Sunday night, still international break, Netherlands 3-2 winners away at Lithuania. But why am I talking about Netherlands and Lithuania on a Monday? I don't care that much about those two countries. The most important thing to note is that Memphis Depay who plays his club football in Brazil at the moment, scored 2 goals to help Netherlands win that game 3-2. And by virtue of those 2 goals, he has now become the highest goal scorer in the history of the Dutch national football team, the male Dutch national football team. That is insane. If you don't know, understand how insane that is, the team that Johan Cruyff pioneered and played for, well, they didn't pioneer because they were already playing football before him, but the team that Johan Cruyff is the poster boy for, the team that had Ruud van Nistelrooy, the team that had Arjen Robben, the team that had Dennis Bergkamp, the country that Patrick Kluivert is from. If you want to add Klaas Jan Huntelaar to that list, the country that Robin van Persie is from now have Memphis Depay as their all-time top scorer. I have to clap it. This is not it. I have to absolutely clap it up for Memphis Depay. 52 goals in 102 games for the Netherlands so far. Impressive feat. Surpassing Robin van Persie, who previously had the record with 50 goals in also 102 games. So you can't even make the argument of the amount of games, blah 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 blah. He's literally played the same exact amount of games as Robin van Persie and has scored more goals. You have to give him credit, but also leads to a deeper conversation. Is it that goals are easier to score today, or we underrate the quality of today's players? Because probably if Depay played 20 years ago, maybe he will be appreciated better, because there's a level of mysticism that we used to look at players that we didn't exactly watch week in, week out. So maybe that's the case, and that's what I'm asking to you right now. Comment, let me know what you think, or mutter to yourself, whatever makes you feel comfortable. But is it a byproduct? Is it that football is easier if Memphis Depay, and doesn't just stop with Depay, it's happening with lots of other countries. A lot of footballing countries right now, their all-time top scorer is active. Like, he's still playing. A lot of footballing countries, their all-time top scoring record was recently broken, which should tell it's a trend. It's a trend. Morata is as high as 4th for Spain, even though he still has some way to go to catch David Villa. Romelu Lukaku has 89 goals for Belgium. 89. It's ridiculous. 89 goals in 124 games for Belgium. Dwarfing Eden Hazard, who is number 2, 33 goals in 126. Kevin De Bruyne, number 3, 32 goals. It's ridiculous what these guys are doing. Look at France. Olivier Giroud broke Thierry Henry's record recently with 57 goals for France. And right behind both him and Thierry Henry is Kylian Mbappe with 51 goals, who will likely break Giroud's record. Again, and like I mentioned earlier, you can't make the excuse of today's players play more games, which they actually do. There are lots more games in the international calendar. The UEFA Nations League did not exist when Thierry Henry was playing, did not exist when Van Nistelrooy was playing, and so on and so on. So maybe if he did, they probably would have scored more goals. But on average, the active players have the same amount, or just around the same ballpark amount of appearances as the older guys did. But they are scoring more goals. So is football easier? I think not. I just think that the quality of players are better than people are willing to admit. Because mysticism is only reserved for the people that we didn't really watch. People that their tails were handed down. But now in this era where you can literally hyper-analyze everything, we are having 6-hour comps, 6-hour film compilations made for players that are excellent, not even players that are bad. So, like, it's lends to how you view players. It lends. So if let's say Depay played 20 years ago and you didn't really watch him week in, week out, and you had to rely on stories from your father or the occasional the occasional Golissimo highlights. Who remembers Golissimo? Let's all tell on each other and tell on our ages. But yeah, the Golissimo highlights, or you see him in a copy of 442 magazine. It builds that, mysticism, because you did not really watch him. And a few times you do watch him, they are talking about, they are, they are showing a fantastic goal that he scored, or a great assist that he made, or he's being featured in a magazine where they are, praising him at length. You are not watching full 90 minutes where he's having his absolute worst time. This applies to pretty much all football legends, or all legends of any sport, really. The availability of every single piece of data possible has not done any good to how player evaluations are done. So that's my take on Memphis Depay, who became, congratulations to him, becoming the all-time top scorer for the Dutch national team. Is no mean feat. Is no mean feat whatsoever, and doing so while playing in the Brazilian league. So, congratulations to Memphis Depay. What's the opposite of congratulations in English dictionary? I don't know, but what I'm about to talk about is the opposite of a congratulatory moment, a derogatory moment for Luis Suarez. And how many times are we going to do this? Luis Suarez, how many times are we going to have this dance? Luis Suarez, for me, is the perfect example of separating the man from his work. Because everybody that knows me knows I consider Luis Suarez a top 5 center forward of all time. Just based on talent level, skill level, even greatness. Like, he achieved a lot. Granted, he had to move to Barcelona to do that, but he did achieve a lot. And he was good. He was really good. Simultaneously, he's also one of my least favorite players. So, and that's nothing other than because of his antics, not any personal issue, his antics. Starting with that handball that denied Ghana. Technically, as someone denied Ghana because he was the one that missed the penalty. But starting with that handball, and as a young, impressionable teenager in 2010, I just knew I cannot like this guy. I cannot like this guy. And even though it changed my mind, just 3 short years later, with that incredible season for Liverpool as a heavy consumer of Premier League football, I really, started to like him because I was liking what I was seeing him do on the pitch. But he's such a polarizing figure. He went on to bite Ivanovic shortly after that. Went on to bite Kelly. With all these incidents, now he spat at a Seattle Sounders coach during an MLS game for Inter Miami. They were losing 3-0, so frustration at an all-time high. Luis Suarez does what Luis Suarez does. Go or fly off the handle, lose his cool, and do something cowardly. Because it doesn't even lose his cool in the way players like Diego Costa do, that like they want to fight, they want to eat you or whatever. No, it does something borderline stupid, like biting somebody or spitting at somebody. It's never a macho man thing. It's just a petulant behavior from a man that is pushing 40. Absolute disgrace. And it has been hit with a 6-game ban. Luis Suarez has been given a 6-game suspension by the league's Cup organizing committee for spitting as a Seattle Sounders staff member following the league's Cup game on Sunday. So last Sunday, where I actually forgot to report that Messi don't collect again. But that's let's leave agenda for now and actually be serious. Luis Suarez getting 6 games for spitting at a coach unprovoked, in my opinion, is a disgrace. I expected a season-long ban. I wanted a season-long ban. I would have settled for half a season. 6 games is ridiculous. 6 games is less. Suarez got 8 games for racism. He got 8 games for racism against Patrice Evra. He got 6 games for spitting at somebody. I'm not saying spitting at somebody is worse than racism. He got 10 games for biting Ivanovic. Now he's getting 6 games for spitting at somebody. He's also been suspended 7 games for another biting incident, and then 9 matches for biting Chiellini, and now 6 games. So basically, he's had 5 separate suspension, lengthy suspension worthy incidents. And at what point does his toe become full? At what point does his cup run over? At what point does FIFA step in and say, you know what, terminate this guy's contract? Or you know what, here go a season-long suspension for you. You can't play for Uruguay, you can't play for Inter Miami, you can't play for anybody, and you can't get paid. Granted, he came out to put out what I consider a bullshit apology, talking about he wants to do better. He did not even name the person he spit on. He did not address. He was just addressing his own behavior and talking about he wants to do better and so on and so forth. Luis Suarez, I do not care about your desire to do better. I care about you consistently proving that you are a horrible human being. And as much as I loved your football talent, I hope for the sake of your children, which you mentioned in the apology letter, I hope for the sake of your children, you grow as a human being. You are 38 years old. There's no reason. What could someone possibly say to provoke you to spit at them? Like, I can't fathom it. But Luis Suarez, man, the absolute worst. I cannot stand him. I cannot stand him. Speaking of someone else I cannot stand, I want to talk about Uli Hoeneß. Uli Hoeneß, if you don't know, is a Bayern Munich big wig, German football great, an executive, a former football player, but he did all those exploits for West Germany in the World Cup all those years ago. But right now, he's currently a board member with Bayern Munich. At 73, he's living up to the first 3 letters of his last name. He's putting up whole behavior, that's to be said. And it's the latest of his antics that pissed me off, where his comments on live TV about a number of topics, actually. But the one that actually got to me was Nicolas Jackson. Hoeneß said on Jackson, and I quote, on Jackson's loan, Jackson joined, we reported on the show last week, Jackson joined Bayern Munich on loan for a reported 16.5 million euros loan fee. To which Uli Hoeneß responds, it's not a 16.5 million euro loan fee because the player and his agent are contributing 3 million euros. So that leaves 13.5 million euros. And there will not be a permanent contract. That only happens if he plays 40 games from the start. He will never do that. That was the quote, direct quote, verbatim, what Uli Hoeneß had to say. A Bayern board member had to say about Nicolas Jackson, a new Bayern player, albeit on loan, a new Bayern player who has not even gotten a chance to make his debut because he signed just before the international break. Shame on you, you 73-year-old man. I hate it when elderly people act like bombs. You're a bomb. I don't care what you achieve in football. If you feel the need to talk down on people like this, it's bummy behavior. Shame on you, Uli Hoeneß. Because, and to be fair to him, I will give him credit. I'll give him grace a little bit because I see what he was trying to do. What he was trying to do was to speak on Bayern's behalf and say, we are not being fleeced in the market. We know exactly what we are doing, blah, blah, blah. Because that's how the question was being presented. Oh, you overpaid for Jackson on loan. And he's like, no, we didn't overpay for him on loan. We only paid 13.5 million. As if that's still not a massive loan fee. His agent are contributing 3.5. Ooh, you are contributing 3 million. We only paid 13.5 million, so it shouldn't matter that much. And even though we agreed to an 80 million option to buy, that option can only be triggered if he starts 40 games for us, and he's not going to start 40 games. that's what he was trying to do, to establish Bayern's position of strength. But what you would expect for someone, an ex-footballer, not only an ex-footballer, an accomplished ex-footballer like Uli Hoeneß, an accomplished football administrator like Uli Hoeneß, you would expect a lot more diplomacy. You would expect him to have the wisdom, the wherewithal to be able to deliver that statement in a much more sensible manner, in a less harmful manner to their new player. A player who wanted to join Bayern so bad, was willing to put up 3 million of his own personal money. Whether it's his own personal money, whether it's agent money, he and his camp really wanted to play for Bayern to the point that they were willing to pay from their own pockets. And before he even gets a chance to make a debut, you shatter his dream talking about the move is never going to become permanent. How about you watch the season and see? God forbid, what if Harry Kane gets injured and you have to play Jackson as your starting striker for well over 40 games? Because Bayern Munich, if everything goes well, will play damn near 60 games this season. There's a strong chance, especially if somebody gets injured in that forward line, that Jackson could start 40 games. So what? And then what? What would happen? So I'm sorry if I've come across as harsh to Uli Hoeneß. I don't know if any Uli Hoeneß fans listen to this podcast or whatever. But I'm sorry if I did come across as harsh. But it's really, really hurt my feelings that he's allowed to speak that way. I expect elderly people to move with a certain level of wisdom that he just simply has not shown. So, kick rocks, Uli Hoeneß, I don't care. Moving swiftly on to Andre Onana. Speaking about kicking rocks, Andre Onana is going to Trabzonspor. And the loud cheers you can hear are from Manchester United fans around the world who are convinced, or have somehow convinced themselves, that Andre Onana is the biggest problem at their club and he has to go before the club can move forward. But I feel like we've seen this before. Look, that's the best thing about not being a Man United fan, is that you can see what they are not seeing, and they don't seem to see anything. First of all, United fans don't have any accountability. They are never like, oh, my bad. Because they actually begged God for Onana. They demonized David De Gea so bad, chased him out of the club, put out 5-hour compilations of him just repeatedly clanger after howler. Begged God for Onana, who was the UEFA goalkeeper of the season, by the way, by the time they signed him for 50 million. There was a reason they paid that money and nobody batted an eye. He was one of the best goalkeepers in the world. At no point are they accountable to the point to say, okay, maybe it's something about the club, maybe, or whatever. Just even admit that we were the ones that got it wrong. It's not a case of who signed this Onana, who blah blah blah. Well, congratulations to Andre Onana. We hear that there's a chance that he's going to be even earning way more than he does at Manchester United. So get your money, my fellow African brother, my black king. But even beyond that, I always encourage players to go where you are loved, go where you are needed. The most important thing should be regular football. It is nice to be able to play regular football at the highest level. But if there's no space there, there's nothing you can do about it. When United signed Lamens, and Bayindia has been playing ahead of Onana for the start of the season, that means that Onana had become third choice with the arrival of Senne Lamens. So, if Cameroon's number one goalkeeper in what is potentially a World Cup year, because Cameroon are second in their World Cup qualification group, so they might qualify for the World Cup, in what is also an AFCON year, Cameroon's first choice goalkeeper cannot be third choice for Manchester United. I'm sorry. So I'm glad that I'd rather be first choice at Trabzonspor as a goalkeeper than third choice at Manchester United, except you are Scott Carson. So I'm glad for Andre Onana. Congratulations to him, and I hope that he's able to really show his value and regain his form, because he really is a good goalkeeper. Look, he's not the best shot stopper, but his selling point was never about the shot stopper. His selling point was everything else that he could do. And people tend to underestimate the importance of confidence and happiness generally for footballers. In your regular job, you seem to understand it. You don't function at your optimal level if you are unhappy, if you are working in a toxic environment, if your boss is always yelling at you, if you make mistakes, because that's what happens. But for whatever reason, we expect it to be different for footballers. You want to abuse footballers for years. You want to attack them every time they post something on social media. You want to boo them in the stadium. You want to do all of this, and you still also want them to brave through it and perform well at the same time. Not everybody is Harry Maguire. It worked out well for Maguire because he had incredible mental strength. But nobody should be required to have that much mental strength. At some point, we have to ask the fans to stop bullying. That's the easier thing to do. Bullying Onana became so fun. Bullying Onana became too fun, became too easy, became the norm, and I did not like it. I still do not like it. It's not even a Pan-African. It's not a. I'm not. I don't have my kufi hat on. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just talking from a human perspective. Bullying should never be normalized, and it was in Onana's case. It frequently is in the cases of the footballers that the footballing world comes together to agree to bully together. Every single fan base bullied Onana, not just Manchester United fans. So, in my opinion, I want him to bounce back from that, and I'm wishing him all the very best. Speaking of all the very best, I wish you all the very best. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Episode 4 of the T&T Talk Sports show has come. And unfortunately has gone. This is the time where we have to part until we see again next week. My name is Tunde Young. It's been a fun episode recapping all the best things that happened over the weekend. Ooh, almost did my king a disservice. I am sorry, my lord. Sorry, my lord is Jesus Christ. But I am sorry, my king, LeBron James. LeBron James added to the law. LeBron James, LeBron Raymond James. It has to be said. It absolutely has to be said. Before I leave, I can't leave without telling you what happened. The first player, anything I say about LeBron is always the first, and that's why it's the GOAT. The first player in the history of basketball, and dare I say any sport for that matter, to wear an Hall of Fame jacket while still not only active, but a top 10, top 20 player in said sport. Ridiculous. LeBron James and the 2008 USA Basketball Men's National Team were officially entered into the Naismith Hall of Fame. And LeBron, Dwight Howard, Chris Paul, Jason Kidd, Chris Bosh, all those guys, Carlos Boozer, all of those guys, they were all recognized. They all lined up on stage with their Hall of Fame jackets and so on and so forth. But the difference is only one of those guys still has a max contract. It's crazy when you think about it. It's crazy when you think about what LeBron James is doing. And I think that if you do not, because when I talk about LeBron James, people go, oh, you're a LeBron sexual. And so what? It's you that chose to give it that derogatory term because you want to make fun of me appreciating the most transcendent talent in the history of sports. Like, it is crazy to me. It is insane to me what LeBron is doing right now. And it is also sad that it's going to stop at some point. But incredible. Congratulations to LeBron James. And since we're on basketball, but as well tell you that the Eurobasket has now entered the quarterfinal stage. 4 games. 2 of those games are actually coming up on Tuesday. Turkey versus Poland Tuesday by 3 p.m. And Lithuania versus Greece. Giannis Antetokounmpo can power Greece to the semi-finals against Lithuania. Find out on Tuesday by 7 p.m. While on Wednesday, we'll see Finland take on Georgia by 3 p.m. And then Germany will go against Slovenia. Luka Doncic and Slovenia on Wednesday by 7 p.m. So that is the update from Eurobasket. At this point, I actually do have to go. So congratulations to LeBron James. Congratulations to everybody we're talking about on the show today. And congratulations to you guys for sticking with me to the very end. I really, 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 really appreciate your followership. I really, really appreciate the fact that at least 30 people are subscribed to the YouTube channel. That when you put things into perspective, you start to realize what it really is. If you put together if you're having a discussion with 30 people and you have their attention, you're having a sports discussion for an hour and you have the attention of 30 people, that's a good conversation. That's a good discussion. So it's only a conversation when you also have input. So which is why I always encourage you to comment and like and share so that other people can also find it and comment, and the algorithm knows that we have something good going on here. I know in my heart that we have something good going on. Like I always say, if you buy this stock early enough, this is like buying Bitcoin in 2009. You are listening to what's going to be the greatest sports show on the planet Earth. My name is Tunde Young. It's been fun. Episode 4. We'll see you on episode 5 next Monday. For now, enjoy the rest of your week. International break is over this week. And by the turn of the weekend, club football will be back. Tired of international break. See you next week, guys. Peace.